I had a dream. It was to live a happy life with my beloved husband Kyle and children. However, that dream never came true and our harmonious marriage suddenly came to an end. This is because my husband cheated on me and even had a child with his mistress. I decided to divorce, but when I found out the true identity of my husband's mistress, I faced even more torment. My husband had betrayed me and had an affair. And then 3 months after the divorce, I want to ask those who have been cheated on, have any of you had your husband's mistress turn out to be a family member? Sadly, such people exist in this world. I have a brother-in-law, but I've never looked at him in that way. Honestly, it's disturbing, isn't it? But if you're asking about that, does it mean... Yeah, you guessed it right. My own sister stole my husband. When my husband told me he wanted to remarry my sister, I was so shocked that everything went dark before my eyes. As a result, we divorced. Even the house we lived in was taken over by my sister. It might take a while to explain, but I'd be glad if you could listen to my story. I was in my 30s, working at a company, and it had been 3 years since I married my ex-husband. By the way, we didn't have any children. I never had any major illnesses, and I thought we would have children soon. But you never know until you look into it, right? Since there were no signs of pregnancy at all, we went to the hospital together a year after we got married. When I found out about my own infertility, I was quite shocked. And yet our relationship as a couple didn't change. Ellie, come over for dinner again sometime, okay? And my in-laws who lived nearby were also kind and caring. Of course, there was no pressure for grandchildren either. The problem was with my own family. Or rather, it was the presence of my sister who lives near my parents' house. My sister, Catherine, is 2 years younger than me, but our relationship has never been great. Because my sister, she's quite old-fashioned. You've heard of how some people find pleasure in others' misfortunes, right? My sister has always had a taste for that kind of sweetness. Whenever I made a mistake or looked distressed, she would approach me with a sympathetic look on her face and say, "Oh, Ellie, you seem down. If you want, I can listen." Huh? Oh, I'm just shocked because I gained a little weight. She reminds me of a friend I don't like. It would be the worst if she were also the type to spread rumors. Oh, my sister. She was the type to tell everyone about it. Ellie seems to have gained weight and she's really bothered about it at home. Please tell her it's not true. It would mean a lot coming from a classmate. I think my big sister would be really happy about it. This was a story told to me in middle school by a classmate, a boy I was slightly interested in. For me as a teenager, it was quite painful. I think this alone conveys how bad my sister's personality is, but there was a really troublesome reason besides that. Hey, you really need to stop spreading stories around like that. Catherine, you wouldn't like it if it was done to you, right? When I warned her, "Huh? Then you should have told me to keep it a secret from the start. Besides, it's your fault for getting fat. Don't blame others when you can't control yourself, you fatty." She always got furious and never apologized. My parents were so troubled by my sister that I tried not to worry them. She's definitely the type of person I wouldn't want as a friend. It's tough because you can't sever ties with family. If you hate her that much, why don't you just avoid her? Well, it's not that simple, because when I go home, I often run into her. According to my parents, she's there all the time. Hey, Ellie, don't you think you come to the house a bit too often? Oh, could it be that things aren't going well with your husband? Your in-laws might start pressuring you to have kids soon. She spoke with a smirk. Now that I think about it, Catherine used to talk a lot about Kyle back then, so maybe they had a relationship even then. I mean, there's no reason to go to my parents' house except to see how they're doing.
Catherine, this has nothing to do with you. You should stop fooling around and seriously think about your future.
Usually our mother would step in at this point. You know, the idea that marriage is the goal is outdated. Marriage is just a ceremony to ensure the continuation of descendants. But sometimes I wonder if there was any point in you getting married. What do you mean by that? I mean, you still don't have kids. What was the point of you getting married? I finally snapped at my sister, who was laughing hysterically. Why do you always have to say something unnecessary? I'm happy I married Kyle. His parents are kind, and they've never pressured me about having kids. In fact, the only one who said such rude things is you. My sister's face turned bright red at my words. She stormed out of the house. After that day, I never encountered her at home again. Apparently, Catherine stopped coming to our parents' house recently. Maybe she finally decided to become independent. She's always been quick to anger and sulk, and my parents and I have always struggled with her childish behavior. I complained to Kyle over dinner.
Hey, I have something to tell you, Ellie. Please, break up with me. I've met someone I like.
Huh? Unexpected situations can leave a person completely speechless. For me, these words from my husband were nothing short of devastating. I was frozen in place by the suddenness of it all, and my husband continued with even more shocking words.
She's going to have a child, my child. A child without a father would be pitiful, don't you think? Fortunately, we don't have any children between us, so there's no reason we can't part ways.
Kyle's one-sided approach, without considering my feelings, angered me deeply. Fortunately? You didn't support me when I wanted to try for a baby, Kyle. You said it felt like an obligation and you hated it. And to think you're okay having affairs as a married man? Is that child really yours, Kyle?
You're the worst. Because you can't have kids, you don't know the difference between what's okay to say and what's not. Deciding to divorce you was the right choice. You're awful. Anyway, I'm divorcing you. I've already filled out my section.
He slammed the divorce papers in front of me and left the house that night without coming back. Why is he acting so high and mighty when he's the one who cheated and even had a child with someone else? It's already painful to be betrayed by someone you trusted, but to have a child as well? He's such a jerk. I thought he was a stranger because of how drastically he changed. But this must have been Kyle's true nature. I ended up facing the morning without any sleep, with bloodshot eyes and terrible dark circles as I went to work. Work distracted me, but when I got home, hell was waiting for me. As I arrived home, I saw the lights were on and realized he was back. While standing at the entrance, I heard, "Hey, I want to replace all the furniture. I want bright colors like pink or orange."
That sounds good. I think I'd prefer that too. Right now it's all Ellie's taste with the gray and beige. Honestly, I never liked it.
The sound of the cheerful laughter of a man and woman made me tremble. Of course, it was out of anger, because I knew both of those voices. Of course, one was Kyle, and the high-pitched woman's voice was my own sister Catherine. When I forcefully opened the living room door, they both looked at me with surprised faces.
Ellie, why are you back? I gave you the divorce papers yesterday. I don't plan on living with you anymore. I thought you would have packed up and left by now.
Do you think this is an amicable divorce? It's not even funny as a joke. Kyle looked displeased at my words. Next to him, my sister was smirking at me. People who cheat can never be decent. Anyone who can make the right decisions wouldn't cheat in the first place. They have so much to lose, yet they act so foolishly. I truly believe that. I will never forget my sister's triumphant look. You're so pathetic, Ellie. It's painful to watch. This has nothing to do with you. I wanted to say that, but I couldn't, because when I saw my sister's slightly swollen belly, it became painfully obvious. I'm pregnant with a child you always wanted but could never have. I'm sorry, Ellie, but we're man and woman. Stop holding grudges. Is that child really Kyle's? Huh? Of course it is. Stop being bitter just because you're infertile. It's really pathetic.
So I'm going to take responsibility and marry Catherine. Catherine, who can give birth to my child, is more important than you, who are infertile. Ellie, you're strong and can live on your own.
Is this some kind of prank? The things they said were so awful, I wanted to believe it was a joke. I had already decided I couldn't stay married to such a person. Fine, I'll file the divorce papers. Good luck with raising the child. As if I needed you to say that. Besides, it's not like you, someone who's never had a child, can talk. Catherine laughed, but I ignored her. I packed a few things and headed to my parents' house. When I told my parents what happened, they were, of course, furious.
Catherine's not answering her phone at all.
My parents were raging at their smartphones. As for me, I got so sick that I had to take some time off work. Wanting to end my marriage quickly, I submitted the divorce papers, which were accepted. When my parents stormed into the place where Kyle and my sister were living, "I just fell in love with my sister's husband, that's all. Aren't you happy? You're finally getting a grandchild. Ellie will be fine. She's the type who can live on her own." Catherine showed no remorse, and my parents were so angry they cut ties with her. Even so, Catherine seemed strangely confident. As for me, I slowly recovered and returned to work a week later. I was grateful to my friends and colleagues who took me out to eat and have fun. Times like these really make you appreciate the presence of friends and family. Well, except that I was betrayed by my family. Did my sister and Kyle end up getting married? It seems they got married right after my divorce from Kyle was finalized. But then a few months after the divorce, I started getting repeated calls from my sister. Want to hear the incredibly selfish reason? Because she was so persistent, I finally picked up the phone. "Finally you picked up, coward. You really have a horrible personality, Ellie." She suddenly called me a coward, but I could tell she was quite panicked. "I'll throw those words right back to you. What nerve you have to contact me." My words came out coldly. "You've ruined my life. Everything you said was a lie. Take responsibility and convince Mom and Dad to let me back home. This isn't how it was supposed to be." She yelled at me one-sidedly. If raising a child is tough, rely on Kyle. But then again, he probably can't handle raising a child that might not even be his. What? When I said that, Catherine fell silent. The truth is, I had run into someone just before receiving my sister's call. It was my ex-husband, Kyle. Despite being the one who pushed for the divorce, he waited for me after work and approached me.
"Ellie, I was wrong. Catherine deceived me. You won't believe this, but she had another man besides me."
He pleaded with his face turning red, but I wondered what's going on in his head. At the time, Kyle told me that it was 3 months after the divorce. My sister gave birth to a baby girl. It was obvious the baby had a foreign father. It wasn't much of a surprise.
"I heard daughters usually look like their fathers, but I couldn't find any resemblance to me,"
Kyle muttered under his breath. "That's not true. This child is definitely yours. Besides, what does it matter whose child it is?" Seeing my sister's agitation, Kyle grew suspicious.
"What do you mean it doesn't matter whose child it is? Are you saying this child might not be mine?"
No, that's not what I meant." They both turned pale. "Are you accusing me of something? A blood test would be pointless. The results wouldn't be accurate at this stage anyway." She probably looked up that excuse beforehand. The more she talked, the more she trapped herself.
"Actually, there was a time when we weren't seeing each other. She contacted me out of the blue and said she was pregnant with my child. She threatened to report me to the police if I didn't marry her."
Kyle pleaded his case to me as if he were the victim. By the way, this story was half true, half false. There was a period when they weren't seeing each other, but it was simply because Kyle was busy with work. Despite my silence, Kyle's monologue continued.
"In a way, I'm a victim too. You were kind enough not to demand alimony from us. Catherine took advantage of that and went on a spending spree. I never thought she could be so wasteful."
"What are you talking about? I'm going to demand alimony starting now."
"What?"
I said it calmly, and Kyle looked like he'd been hit by a brick. "You're the one who said it. I agree with you that the child born is innocent. That's why I waited for the baby to be born safely. You did something that resulted in a baby with my sister, and you think there won't be any alimony? What a joke." I was so stunned I couldn't help but raise my voice.
"But I spent a lot of money on Catherine."
That has nothing to do with me. By the way, we still need to discuss the division of assets, so I'll be making sure to claim my share. If you ambush me like today again, I won't hesitate to call the police."
"The police?"
"Of course, we're strangers now. When we broke up, I was relieved that I didn't have a child with you for the first time. Someone like you doesn't deserve to be a father." I said coldly and walked away. When I told Catherine about Kyle showing up, What the hell? Kyle pisses me off. He jumped at the chance the moment I gave him a hint. He started talking about divorce the moment he realized that the baby wasn't his and didn't help with the parenting at all. He bragged about being a kind husband. What a liar. Even if she's a scheming woman, I can't help but be amazed at her nerve. I was called a liar the whole time. My sister, who heard my side of the story, thought that Kyle, being kind, would forgive anything. She even thought that if she was cut off from our family, Kyle's parents would be just as kind to her and help her with the baby. But reality isn't that sweet. The moment Kyle's parents found out he was divorcing me to marry my sister, they disowned him. Despite that, my sister and her husband thought it was a joke and visited Kyle's parents after their baby was born. I'm now the wife of this house. Please recognize me as family already. You were kind to my sister, so why are you cold to me? Kyle, ask them too.
Well, it's not confirmed that the baby is mine yet. Mom, Dad, I was wrong. I plan to leave her and get back with Ellie. You both liked Ellie, right? So please, at least let me back into the family.
Huh? What are you saying? This baby is yours, isn't it? How many times do I have to say the same thing? They started arguing in front of Kyle's parents' house. Who are you people? You're disturbing the neighborhood, so please leave. We've cut ties with our foolish son, and we don't know any horrible people who would steal their sister's husband. Please leave. She responded through the intercom and never answered again. Kyle says he has no intention of becoming a father to someone else's child, so it's impossible for me to raise a child alone. Hey, don't you think it's pitiful? Yeah, it is pitiful. When I responded like that, my sister's worried expression suddenly brightened. Isn't that right? If that's the case, then please contact our parents, Ellie. Oh good, now everyone can feel relieved. What are you talking about? The one who's pitiful here is the baby that's been born. Huh? But that's how it is, right? The newborn baby suddenly witnessed fights right in front of them. An unreliable mother who only worries about herself. It's just a case of a child giving birth to another child. Kyle said he was waiting for the DNA test results, but what happened with that? Well, it can't be helped. I'm disorganized and I didn't realize I was pregnant until late. The test results showed it wasn't Kyle's child. Probably my ex-boyfriend's child. But he's so annoying, I just didn't want that. I thought Kyle would spoil me. Ah, I see. Knowing that, I feel relieved. Well then. Wait a minute, the conversation isn't over yet. She shouted over the phone, but I ignored her and hung up. She's so stubbornly unhappy, it's almost fitting for her. But the child is simply pitiful. Exactly, I just want that child that was born to be happy. I don't mind if those two go to hell. I felt the same way. Actually, after the divorce, an unexpected truth came to light. While I was talking with a friend, it turned out that my sister's ex-boyfriend might be an acquaintance of that friend. It was right after I heard about it from Kyle, so I decided to meet that person. By the way, his name is Jacob. We arranged to meet at a cafe, and when I met him, he seemed very sincere.
When we were dating, she was really bad with money, and when I warned her about it, she stopped contacting me. But if I might be the father of the child, there's a different story. I don't plan to marry Catherine, but I want the child to be happy. I contacted Jacob and told him that my ex-husband wasn't the father. It seems he was prepared too, and he reached out to Catherine. The DNA test results showed that Jacob was the father. My sister, realizing that there was no future with Kyle, shifted towards reconciling with Jacob. But it seems that was a non-starter. While it's difficult for fathers to win custody, Jacob managed to do so. My sister can't hold down a job, is aging, and is okay with having affairs while her family has cut ties with her. When it came to the baby's well-being, it was obvious who should have custody. By the way, Jacob is doing a great job as a dad with the support of his parents. As for my sister, through a lawyer, I claimed compensation. I didn't get angry with the lawyer, but to my surprise, Kyle... Ellie, have you been talking about me? You might be hiding your true feelings because you have a strong front. Won't you listen to me?
Seems like he thought I still have feelings for him.
A meaningless apology holds no value, so please agree only to the terms we proposed.
That's what the lawyer said.
I heard you ambushed her near your workplace. Excessive actions like that are subject to criminal penalties.
The lawyer stated firmly.
Yes. I'm sorry.
After a feeble response, the call apparently ended. A few days later, money was deposited into the designated account. As for my sister, it was somewhat as expected. Why is money involved when we're family? Or rather, please, let me talk to my sister herself. Hiring a lawyer for a simple sisterly quarrel, isn't that ridiculous? Seems like she had quite a strong attitude, but she's indeed a professional. My sister, after calmly receiving an explanation from the lawyer, finally seemed to understand her own position. I have something to attend to, so I'll hang up now. After saying that, the call apparently ended, and no matter how many times she tried to reach out afterwards, it seems there was no response. Instead, notifications of missed calls from me increased. She's my sister in every sense, so if I ignore her... Hey, why aren't you answering the phone? Going as far as demanding compensation? Are you kidding me? I've already broken up with Kyle, and he wasn't the father of the child. It's over, so can't we just leave it at that? Suddenly a voice came from behind, but I wonder where it came from. A monster, really. Unbelievable, my sister. I wonder how she was raised. But are we really sisters? Our parents raised us without spoiling us, though. Even I don't understand this. By the way, my response to the person in front of me was... I silently sounded the alarm. Hey, what's this nonsense? That was the last time I saw my sister storming off in anger. I haven't seen her since then. Later, realizing it might escalate to a lawsuit, they must have given in and transferred compensation. I don't know how that money was generated, but I suspect it might have been borrowed. Kyle seems to be quite out of place at work. I wouldn't want to associate with someone who becomes a criminal in such a short time. As for me, I moved to my mother's hometown with my parents. The reason is that both my parents and I have become tired because of this incident. My work is mostly remote, with me going to the office for a few hours once a month. I wanted to get away from that place and haven't been public at all. And for some reason, the air feels good. My sister may contact me in the future, but neither my parents nor I are going to help. Because that's all she thinks she did. Thank you for listening to my story so far. It's good that the baby was taken by its real father. Those two probably can't manage to get married anymore. It may be unimaginable now, but I hope I meet a good person someday. I wanted to be a mother but wasn't prepared. Nevertheless, my sister Catherine became a mother. I was deeply hurt and depressed, but started a new life. I can only hope that life from now on will be bright and peaceful. Other people's misfortune tastes bitter. Those who think this way will inevitably face themselves someday. Don't you think living a life of mutual help rather than demeaning others is a wonderful thing?